Putting your hands together, shoulders even, body relaxed, head bowed in reverence. Ananta samsara samudratara naukayitabhyam guru bhaktidabhyam vairagya samrajyad pujanabhyam namo namaha Shri Guru Padukabhyam Namo Namaha Shri Guru Padukabhyam Namo Namaha Shri Guru Padukabhyam Sarva Chaitanya Rupantam Adyam Vidyancha Dhimahi Buddhim Yanaha Prachodayat. Jagannatha Pahimam. So today is the 5th in the series for Tripura Rahasya, and as we all remember, Tripura Rahasya composed by Haritayan Rishi, but the initial Upadesh was given to Parshuramji Maharaj from Dattatreya in the form of small stories. One of the stories that the Dattatreya Maharaj narrates was the story of Hemlekha and Hemchud. And we saw in the last satsang how Hemlekha, being brought up in the ashram in the satsangatya of Rishi Vyagrapad, was a great jnani, was a realized person herself. And she brought it to her husband Hemchud's attention how the pleasure that he seeks or he thinks he derives from coming in contact with objects is not truly in the object, but it is within him. And how the pleasure of worldly objects is transitory and it depends on the inner state. And she narrates how if a person has burns all over the body, to such a person, if you take chandan or sandalwood paste and you put it all over his body, it's just going to get him more in pain. So it depends what state you are in for you to enjoy or derive pleasures. And the thing that you're thinking that you're deriving pleasure from outside is truly not the fact. The pleasure resides within. After giving this Upadesh, Hemchud leaves. But then the tendencies, the pull of the tendencies is such that he's still drawn to derive that pleasure from objects, because that's the pull of the tendencies. Although he knows that there is no pleasure in the objects, yet he is unable to control himself. So he finds himself going towards experiencing the worldly objects to derive pleasure, but as soon as he would make contact with the worldly objects, the words of Hemlekha would come in front of him and he would say, no, but this is not true. I am creating a thought within me that this contact with this object is going to give me pleasure. The pleasure doesn't reside in this object. And then in this state of neither being able to discover where this pleasure is, nor able to leave the pull of the tendencies, he got into a very depressed state. which we call Nirved. In such a depressed state, he started living his life. Hemlekha observed that, and one day she went to the prince and she said, "Beloved, what is wrong with you? You look very tired and very sad nowadays. Is your health okay? Can I help you with anything?" For that, the prince replied, after listening to your sermon, after listening to your discourse on pleasure, I'm in a fix. I'm neither able to drop the pleasures that I think I derive from worldly objects, nor am I able to discover that pleasure on my own within me. I'm in a very troubled state. Help me. To this, Hemlekha replied, "O Prince, this state, which is called Nirved, Vedana, this state that you are in, which can be called as dispassion, can either lead a person to become a yogi or can lead a person to become a rogi. Rogi being someone who has diseases. If the dispassion turns you into a yogi, know that you have the grace of the Divine Mother in Bij form, in the form of a seed. The potential for self-realization exists in you in the form of a seed. But if it is leading you towards depression, then know that you need to seek the grace, seek the refuge of the Divine Mother to help you turn yourself into a yogi." To this, Hemchur replied, "So help me, my dear beloved, help me, because this fix that I am in, I no longer want to be. Help me out of this state." She said, it is not the end of the journey that you conclude that there is no pleasure in contact with worldly objects. That doesn't lead you anywhere. It is when you set yourself on a journey to discover that fountain of bliss that is within you, from where these pleasures are arriving. From that place, these pleasures are coming up. Until you discover that fountain of bliss, you haven't achieved a thing. So instead of dwelling in this state, I'm very happy to see, O Prince, O dear husband, that you have that seed for discovering that fountain of bliss within you. And then she said, "Let me tell you my own story." So she made him sit down and she started narrating this beautiful story, the main character being herself. She said, long time ago, I was given a best friend by my mother. The best friend was called Sakhi. Sakhi and I were living happily. I was very fond of my Sakhi, of my best friend, because she was given to me by my mother. I was very fond and very attached to my friend Sakhi. But over a period of time, Sakhi became good friends with another woman, and that woman was called Shunya, non-existent. That's the literal meaning of the word Shunya. So my friend Sakhi became good friends with Shunya. Shunya was an elderly woman. Shunya and my friend Sakhi became such good friends that Sakhi now started ignoring me a little bit. She was more into listening to what Shunya had to say. She started enjoying Shunya's company more. Shunya also started loving Sakhi, and she said, "Listen, Sakhi, I have this very a very good son. I want you to get married to him. The son's name is Moh or Mood. So Moh got married to Sakhi. Sakhi and Moh were together. Sakhi, Moh and Shunya were living so happily together. I was very fond of Sakhi. I was always by Sakhi because she was given to me by my mother. So I always stayed very close to Sakhi. I would give my energy and nourishment to everyone, but I was just a silent witness to whatever was happening. Eventually, Moh, the son of Shunya, Moh and Sakhi, in their marriage, had a son. The son's name was Asthir, the one who cannot be still. Asthir. Asthir was given to me by my friend Sakhi for nourishment. So Sakhi told me, all his nourishment, all his needs, you need to fulfill them. Yet, Asthir derived all his qualities from his father and from his grandmother. Although I was providing all the energy and nourishment to Asthir, his qualities were that of the grandmother and the father. Asthir eventually grew up and got married to a woman named, well, before that, she said Asthir had two very unique qualities. He could travel anywhere and he could think of anything. Those were the most prominent qualities of Asthir. Asthir eventually got married to a woman named Chapala. Chapala means unstable, always moving about. So Asthir got married to Chapala. Asthir being the one who can never be still, the one who can think of anything, and the one who can travel anywhere, got married to a woman named Chapala who cannot sit still, who just cannot be stable, who constantly is on the move. Together, Asthir and Chapala had 5 sons. Those sons grew up and constructed huge mansions. Asthir and Chapala would go and visit each of these mansions with their 5 sons' residence, which were the mansions. So they would periodically go from one mansion to another to another. Because remember, Asthir along with Chapala, they both had the qualities of not staying in one place forever. So they would some days visit the first son, some days second, some days third. I remained as a silent witness, and I remained as the source of nourishment to this family that was just growing. My friend Sakhi would always ask me to provide nourishment to everyone. So the 5 sons that Asthir and Chapala had, one son created a huge mansion. So whenever Asthir and Chapala went to this mansion, the son took them around the mansion. Around the mansion they saw things that were very beautiful, various colors, various sights. Sometimes those were very pleasing to the eyes, sometimes those were very harsh to the eyes. Some colors were so harsh, piercing. Some shapes were so weird. Some shapes were round, some were tall, some were short, some were oval. This entire mansion was filled with various things that you could see. The second son his mansion was filled with fragrances. Some beautiful fragrances, some you couldn't even stay there for a second. The mansion was full of those. So the son took Asthir and Chapala all over the mansion. The third mansion was all about tastes. Some were sweet, some were sour, some were katu, bitter, various kinds of tastes. Some were spicy. The entire mansion was filled with all kinds of food, with all kinds of tastes. The fourth son was all about soft or hard, various types of touch. The entire mansion was full of that. Some were soft to touch, some were very hard, some were rough, some were coarse, all kinds of touch sensations. What else is remaining? The sound. Okay. The fifth one, the mansion was full of sounds. Some were Vedocharan and some were just all kinds of sounds in that mansion. So Asthir, who is the son, plus Chapala, the wife, would travel sometimes in the first mansion, sometimes in the second, sometimes in the third, sometimes in the fourth, sometimes in the fifth. All of these people were being provided nourishment by me. Yet, I had nothing to do with their businesses. I was just watching them do their thing. When Asthir, the son, would travel along these 5 mansions, he had this dirty habit of stealing. So he would steal something from everywhere. And when everyone would go to bed, everyone would be asleep, he alone would sit down and open his bag that he had stolen from each of these places, and he would start experiencing them. Some of those experiences would be pleasant to him, some would be unpleasant. But he would do that. Every night he would steal and he would enjoy those. This went on for a while. And then one day, Chapala, the first wife of Asthir, came and said, listen, I have a sister. She hasn't been getting married. She just cannot get married, but she's very pretty. Why don't you get married to her? Asthir said, why not? My first wife is coming to me and telling me, get married again. Hell yeah, I'll get married. So he went and got married to Chapala's sister. Her name was Mahashana. Mahashana. The qualities of Mahashana were she could never be satiated, ever hungry. He got married to her. Within few minutes, she'd be like, feed me more, because I'm still hungry. So, Asthir, Chapala and Mahashana were living, but Asthir was getting tired of trying to feed Mahashana because she was ever hungry. With his love with Mahashana, he had 2 children. One was Jwalamukhi, the other one was Nindavritti. Jwalamukhi was very close to the mother, Mahashana. So whenever Asthir would come to visit Mahashana, he would have to suffer Jwalamukhi. And Jwalamukhi would come and hug him and he would be full of fire. The other son was Nindavritti. Because of the presence of the second son, he got apakirti, which means he got defamed in the society. The Asthir was getting defamed in the society. So he would suffer whenever he would go to Mahashana because the Jwalamukhi was right there, and he was just getting defamed in the society because of Nindavritti, his second son. Seeing Asthir suffer, Asthir was the son of Moha and Sakhi. My friend Sakhi started suffering. Whenever Asthir would be happy, she would feel that she is happy. Whenever Asthir would be sad and tormented by his own children, she would feel sad. Although she was not the one getting all this suffering, yet her attachment, her identification with her son was so much that whenever the son would suffer, she would suffer. Moha, which is the husband of my friend Sakhi, one day tried to make advances at me. But by nature, I'm pure. I just cannot be touched. Hence, he couldn't do anything to me. This entire extended family, I was providing them nourishment. I was providing them energy to be. Yet, I was not attached to them. I was just watching them. I had nothing to do with their businesses. My only attachment was to my Sakhi, my best friend, who was given to me by my mother. But over a long period of time, I forgot that I'm my mother's child, and I identified myself with my Sakhi and the extended family of Sakhi. And then we all started living in this huge mansion called Dashadwar, the mansion with 10 openings or 10 entrances. We were living. There was this one person who was holding all of these characters together, like the string that holds all the pearls together in a necklace. His name was Prachar, and we were all living. Whenever my friend Sakhi would be upset, I would be upset. Whenever my friend Sakhi would be happy, I would be happy. Eventually, I was known for this extended family that I had. I had lost completely my recognition that I had, that I'm my mother's child. I completely lost that, and I just became known for this extended family, this huge long family that I had. This went on for many years, many lifetimes. Then one day, my friend Sakhi, she came to me and she said, I'm suffering. Please help me. I don't want to suffer like this because of this family. Please help me. At that point, I told her about my mother. I remembered my mother, and I told her that my mother, she is everything in this creation. She is everyone. She is the foundation for this entire creation to exist, yet she doesn't have any foundation. She is Mata Pita Vivarjita. She doesn't have a father or mother. She is Mahapativrata. After listening to the glories of my mother, my Sakhi begged me for help. She said, please help me. And by the grace of my mother, I got my friend Sakhi a new husband. And I told her, if you want to get rid of all this suffering, get married to him. And she readily agreed. So my friend Sakhi got married to this person called Viragi. After they got married, Viragi said, the first thing we need to do is kill your old husband, the first husband. Let's go ahead and kill him. So Viragi killed Moha, the first husband. And then Sakhi went and killed Chapala and Mahashana. And then she completely killed the 5 kids that Asthir had with Chapala. Further on, she moved on to completely kill Mahashana's sons Jwalamukhi and Nindyavritti. After all of these immediate family members gone, the wife and kids, Asthir became extremely quiet, extremely powerless and quiet. Then Sakhi went and killed Shunya, the main friend, one association that brought about this entire family. After killing all these people, Sakhi realized that Sakhi was given to me as Jiva Chaitanya. But truly, Sakhi belongs to the Divine Mother. That I belong to the Divine Mother. I belong to my mother. And then Sakhi held on to my mother tight. I held on to my mother tight, and we attained eternal happiness, eternal bliss. So, O King, O Prince, know that the eternal pleasure, eternal bliss, eternal happiness that you're seeking is not in any of the worldly objects. It only resides in my mother. Hence, if you're looking for that eternal happiness, you have to seek my mother. After listening to this story, Hemchur gave out a hearty laugh. He said, "What are you talking about? Your mother, you're this, you got married, you had kids. Well, what is all this? This is not true. I know when I met you at the ashram, at Rishi Vyagrapad's ashram, you had told me that you were the adopted daughter, that you were the daughter of a nymph, and a beautiful nymph, and a prince who was in the forest hunting, and then they made love and you were born. But because the nymph was already married and couldn't take you back, she left you there, and that Rishi Vyagrapad took care of you. What is all this? My mother gave me a friend, I don't believe in all this. I know all this doesn't make any sense." To this, Hemlekha looked piercingly at the prince, and she said something very, very profound. She said, "Oh Prince, you already know that I'm your well-wisher. I am an Apt. Apt is a well-wisher. You already know I'm your well-wisher. Knowing that I'm your well-wisher, you have to trust my words. You have to have faith, Shraddha. And faith, O Prince, is an absolute term. Either you have it or you don't. There comes a point that you have to put your logic aside. And even though this story to you may seem asat, you have to have faith in my words. With your logic, you're looking at this story. With your logic, you're telling me, oh, but I already know your story. You are the adopted daughter of Vyagrapad. I understand. I understand your logic. But know that when a well-wisher tells you something, you should have faith. Keeping your logical mind aside, you should jump in. You should jump in and you should just follow the advice. So then Hemchur asks. Instantly he realizes and he says, oh, I'm sorry, tell me. She said, no, you're not ready yet. Go do sadhana. Go contemplate. Purify yourself. Put your logical mind to the side and then come back. And then she sends Hemchur away. And what does Hemchur do? He goes and listens to Mind and Divine. I'm just kidding. He his sadhana is to quieten the logical mind. Because she says, faith starts when your logical mind is quietened. Faith and logical mind cannot be together. Oh Prince, you're not ready yet to know the esoteric meaning of this story. You need to first put your logical mind to rest. Go do sadhana. Go put your logical mind to rest completely. Then come back to me. Then you have the eligibility to know the details of this story. So the prince goes away for many, many months. He doesn't come back. He is busy in only one thing, quietening the mind, quietening the logical mind. Because till the time the logical mind is speaking, faith and the power of faith cannot rise up. So all the blah, 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 blah needs to eventually calm down. And then he returns. He returns and he says, "Oh beloved, now I know what you were saying about the logical mind. It doesn't stop. One tark, one logic after another, after another, after another. It just keeps building. Until and unless I drop this logic, you are right. I'm not fit to understand or to imbibe the esoteric meaning of the story you told me a couple months ago. After quietening my logical mind, after quietening my mind, now when I recall and contemplate on that story, it's making sense to me. But I would like to hear it from your mouth. I would like to hear it from you. O Jnani, give me the bodh. Give me the knowledge. Impart that sermon to me." To this, Hemlekha is very happy to see this change, this transformation in the king. Because now he is sitting with a bowl that's empty, ready to be poured in. Before, when he heard the story, the bowl was full of logic. Once the logical mind was emptied, once the mind was completely emptied, now he was ready. He was ready for the subtle knowledge to be poured in. So Hemlekha starts expounding. She says, "Oh Prince, now you already know who my mother is. My mother is none other than the Divine Mother." And then she says, "Mother," this word itself, is the one who loves unconditionally, whose acceptance of you is unconditional. One. Second, who gives you support, who can give you refuge, who can give you security. That's why my mother is so great. Because the Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, accepts me unconditionally the way I am. She supports me unconditionally. And she is my only refuge. So when I say my mother being the Divine Mother, and when I say I, my mother gave me, when I say I, it is the Jiva Chaitanya, the individual ego, individual consciousness. Like we talked about the pot, the clay pot. The space inside the clay pot is the individual consciousness. The space outside is the universal consciousness. The universal consciousness is the Divine Mother. And her ansh, her presence within us is the I. Half the spiritual journey is to detach everything and be and identify and recognize the I. And the other half of the spiritual journey is to establish ourselves in that I. All the sadhanas that we do, meditation, chanting, this, that, is only and only to recognize the I within us. Once you recognize, situating yourself in that I is the other half of sadhana. So anyway, so Himlekha says, my divine mother. When I say my, I being the Jiva Chaitanya, individual ego or individual consciousness. I was given a friend by my mother. That friend, who we call Sakhi, is the intellect. Shuddha Buddhi is the intellect. The power to discriminate between real and unreal. Vivek, that was given to me by my mother as a friend. I and my friend were together. I had extreme attachment to my friend because my friend was given to me by my mother. So Jiva Chaitanya, individual ego, that throbbing feeling of I, together with Vivek, Shuddha Buddhi, pure intellect, that says, yes, although this I is in this body, it is truly Aham Brahmasmi. That's the function of the intellect. This intellect became friends with Shunya. Shunya is non-existential. This is something we keep talking about, existential and psychological. Existential is what is. What is of every situation is the truth. What else is, what could be, what should be, is all Shunya, is all non-existent and created. So this intellect became good friends with ignorance or non-existential reality. And ignorance or the non-existential reality had a son, attachment. First of all, when we look at any incident, the incident as is, without any added masala, is what is. What else could be, what else should be, what else could it be, all of those is non-existent psychological reality. That non-existent psychological reality has a child, attachment. And the intellect gets married to attachment, which means instead of seeing things as is, the buddhi or the intellect now starts getting attached to what else is, what else could be, what else should be. And out of such an attachment, out of such a marriage of the intellect with attachment to non-existential reality, rises the great son, the mind. And mind, which is asthir, has two qualities. He can travel anywhere and he can think of anything. The mind is being nourished by me, by the jiva, by the I. The I silently watches all this show. The intellect is going, attaching to what else is, what else could be, what else should be. Out of such an attachment, mind is arising. Now this mind can go anywhere, think of anything. Such a mind gets married to Chapala. Chapala is cannot sit still. So already the mind, which can travel anywhere, think of anything, is extremely restless now. Out of such a restless mind, the five senses and this plethora of experiences in each of the sense, each mansion that the children built is each of the sense organ, the eyes, the ears, the nose, all these are the mansions where the kids live. And the mind goes to each mansion, enjoys not enjoys, experiences all kinds of things, dualities. Some are good, some are bad, some are good, some are bad. Constantly enjoys all of those, along with his wife Chapala, which is a restless mind, is constantly visiting the children, sometimes experiencing good, sometimes experiencing bad. And what does the mind do? It's a thief. It steals objects from each of these senses. And when everyone is asleep, it sits there, opens its bag of the stolen goods and starts experiencing those, which are the dreams that we get. Sometimes we get really scary dreams. Sometimes we get beautiful dreams. They're all stolen goods. Only the exception being when the guru appears in the dream. That's not really related to this, because no mind has the power, no senses have the power to create a guru. A guru comes and graces of his own accord. So that's that. So the mind travels to all these senses, steals and experiences them in the dream state. Then the mind gets remarried, a second marriage, to Mahashana. Asha is desire, never gets fulfilled. So out of this desire rises two sons. One, Jwalamukhi, anger, and the second, Nindyavritti, is greed. One desire fulfilled creates greed for more desires. One desire unfulfilled creates anger. Anger and greed are direct children of Mahashana, desires. Like Swamiji says, expectations are nothing but desires that you think you have the right to be fulfilled. So expectations and desires are almost the same. Some expectations, if they're not fulfilled, anger rises. So the mind, asthir, whenever he is with his wife Mahashana, he has to suffer because of the presence of the dear son Jwalamukhi, or the anger. Anger directly arises from desires and expectations. Expectations are those desires that the mind thinks these need to be absolutely fulfilled. There is no way it can be a no. They have to be fulfilled. That's an expectation. An unruly child of a desire. And greed. Greed is what causes Nindyavritti, defame. It's only because of the greed that we lose our fame. The more we give, the more we are giving, the more fame we get, the more we hold on, the more we want for only ourselves, the more ninda we get, criticism or defame. So the mind, second wife, is this. But remember, all the while, all these are being nourished by the energy of I, the silent witness, the individual consciousness. It's the flow of energy to all of these, that these are all living happily. And my friend Sakhi, the intellect, thinks that if the mind is happy, the intellect is happy. If the mind is unhappy, the intellect is unhappy. They all live in a building, a huge mansion called the mansion with 10 entrances, which is the human body. So they all live there. And the one string that holds all of these together is the prana. The prana has nothing to do with their activities. It's just something that holds all of these together. And eventually, I forgets that I'm actually a child of the Divine Mother. And I becomes identified with the mind, with the intellect, with the senses, with the greed, with the anger, with the desires and expectations. And I also starts suffering. And then she says, but one day the intellect, something happens in the intellect. She calls it a spuran. An inner epiphany arises in the intellect, and it says, I don't want to be like this. I want to seek that eternal happiness. I want to seek that eternal bliss. And the intellect turns inwards. When the intellect turns inwards, the intellect comes to I. The intellect identifies I. All of a sudden, the intellect says, hold on just a second. I was happy with I. Let me go back. So the intellect turns inward to I, recognizes, discovers the I. Once the intellect discovers the I hope you're still awake, all of you. Once the intellect discovers the I, then I goes back to the Divine Mother. Reaching the Divine Mother, then there is no coming back. And we seek, and then we find the eternal happiness. Then Prince asked, what made the intellect turn inwards? All of a sudden, what made the intellect turn inwards? For that, Hemlekha replies, it is the grace of the Divine Mother herself. And that's the meaning of Gayatri Mantra. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Bhu, Bhuvaha, Swaha, Jana, Maha, Tapa, Satya. All of these are lokas within us. But there is one continuous existence. There is something that is continuous between all of these lokas. That Savitur. Savitur is the sun. That sun which provides its rays of light that travel through all these lokas. To that sun I'm praying that may my intellect be lit. May my intellect be lit by thy light. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Jana Maha Tapa Satyaha. These are the lokas. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tat. That Savitur. Savitur is the sun. That sun which lights up all of these lokas. Tat Savitur Varenyam. I bow down to thee. I bow down to that sun that lights up all of these lokas. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. That sun lights up the outside sun. May that sun light up my buddhi. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. You are the light of the outside sun. Dhiyo Yo Naha. Dhi is buddhi. Dhiyo Yo Naha. Naha doesn't mean mine. Naha means all of ours. Naha means us. May you light the buddhi, may you light the intellect of all of us, so we may walk towards you, so we may realize that we belong to you. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Prachodayat is may you light up our intellect. So what did the intellect do? The intellect went and did Gayatri Sadhana. Just kidding. So the intellect was inspired from within by the Divine Mother to look within. That inspiration is the Guru. That inspiration, because the Divine Mother herself manifests as the Guru. And the Guru's job is to turn the intellect inward. And this was the prayer this was the chant I was chanting in the beginning. Sarva Chaitanya Rupantam Adyam Vidyancha Dhimahi buddhim yanaha prachodayat. Because Vyasji Maharaj thought not everyone is going to get initiation into Gayatri sadhana. So why don't I give the Gayatri mantra in a form that can be chanted without initiation yet have the same exact effect. Sarva Chaitanya Rupantam. She is the Chaitanya, she is the consciousness of all, of everything. Sarva Chaitanya Rupantam. Adyam, she is the beginning. She is the true knowledge. Vidyam Chadhimahi. Buddhim ya naha prachodayat. So it's only when the intellect is inspired by the grace of the Divine Mother, the intellect starts to look within. The first thing the intellect finds is the I. The I then gives the intellect a new husband, which is Vairagya or dispassion. Don't be attached to anything. Remember, nothing is happening. It's like someone watching a movie and getting attached to the characters of the movie. Because the movie is shunya. Nothing is happening yet it looks like there's so much happening. Non-existential. And with this Vairagya, Moha is completely removed. The attachment is completely removed. And then the senses are killed. Doesn't mean you cut away your senses. It just means they are in the hands of Lord Shiva, Lord Krishna. So the senses are first gotten under control. Then anger, greed and desires / expectations are killed. The mind then loses its 2 wives and the children and becomes quiet. Quiet to the point that it dissolves. And that's the meaning of Divine Mother's name, Manonmani. Man, Unmani Avastha. Unmani is extreme bliss. Man is the mind. When the mind dissolves itself in the extreme bliss, that is Manonmani Avastha. And after all these people are killed, then Vairagya along with Shuddha Buddhi hold on to the Divine Mother. Vairagya and Shuddha Buddhi are the extended family of the individual consciousness. And then the individual consciousness remembers that, hey, I am hers. Aham Brahmasmi. I am hers. The individual consciousness itself is the universal consciousness. The individual consciousness doesn't need to then break the pot. Oh, I just realized I am everything, let me just kill my body. It doesn't have to be, it's foolishness. That's why Mother gave the intellect, saying, always remember, my acceptance of you is unconditional. My support to you is unconditional. You are mine. That's the only thing worth remembering. That's the only thing I'm giving you as intellect to every jiva. Because jiva is the I. So intellect should only have 3 things. Mother's unconditional love, unconditional support, and that I am hers. Apart from that, there is nothing, there's no other knowledge. When eventually the intellect turns and becomes that, then I and the intellect, I and my family, which is the intellect and the dispassion, we hold on to Mother's feet tight. And that's when we derive eternal bliss, eternal joy. Mind, having become completely quiet and powerless, dissolves in that bliss. It's like, if you go into a room and there is a small diya that's lit. It's a dark room and there is a small diya. Then you switch on the light over there. When you switch on the light, it's not like the diya is completely off. The diya remains, but the light of the room takes over. Diya is still there, but the light of the room takes over. Similarly, when the intellect realizes experientially, when the intellect realizes experientially, the Jiva Chaitanya, which is the small diya, small lamp in the room, remains. But now the big lamp is switched on in the room. The universal consciousness has taken over, has completely taken over the small lamp or the individual consciousness. Manon Mani Avastha. So, to explain that how the association of non-existential reality is the first cause of decline. The entire problem started because the intellect started attaching to what else is, what else could be, what else should be, instead of staying with what is. What is the Sat. What else is, what else should be, what else could be is all Asat. So, oh my prince, oh my beloved husband, stick to Sat and not Asat. Stick to what is. What is the existential truth. What should be, what could be, what else is the psychological, non-existential truth, if you want to call it that way. So with this sermon, she expounded how a jiva, individual ego, the aham, along with the shuddha buddhi, coming in contact with shunya, non-existential, gives rise to this entire sansar, this jiva bhav. Aham dehosmi to aham brahmasmi. How do we go? Aham dehosmi is I am the body. I am that big mansion where I live with my 5 sons, the senses, 2 wives, their kids, the grandmother. We all live together in a non-existential world. Shunya. And this goes on for lifetimes to lifetimes. When the mansion, it's mentioned, when the mansion gets old, the residents move to a different mansion, but it continues. Nothing changes. So, all my dear friends here, including my own self, I'm talking. This combination, the potent combination of a human life, a Sadguru Sangatya, and the 2 words that have fallen in our ears, Divine Mother, make this lifetime, period, put a period to that. Realize in this lifetime itself, right now, that non-existential is shunya. Be astute in observing incidents in the life to what is and stick to what is. When you stick to what is, Mahashana is killed. Mahashana's desires and expectations. Most of our grief from others is from expectations, from desires. And expectations, as Swami says, are desires that we think we have the right to get them fulfilled. No. Everyone around you, around me, is acting according to what they think is right. The Prince Hemchud was acting how he thought was right until he met Hemlekha. Until Hemlekha gave him the sermon, he didn't know any better. Does that mean he was a lowly person? And it's not like Hemlekha got married to the prince and she said, oh, he's so worldly, he's not spiritual at all. None of that. She made him thirsty by displaying the highest ideal in herself. She made him thirsty. She made him crave for more. What is this that you are enjoying? Undisturbed, that I keep getting disturbed. So this potent combination of a human birth, of Swami and the Divine Mother, nothing can stop us unless we decide to be friends with Shunya, non-existential reality. psychological. What else is? What else could be? What else should be? Drop it all. Re-listen the mind and divine. Remember, the prince had to go back and listen to mind and divine. Unless we completely quieten the mind, the bowl is so full, nothing can be poured in it. So, with this, perfect timing, Divine Mother. We'll end the satsang and then we will do the closing chant and then we will do the question and answer. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, let's do questions now. Remember, all the sadhana, whatever sadhana we are doing, is to detach the I from whatever it's not. First step of self-discovery. Once you can, in the waking state and close your eyes, you can identify the I in you. Half the journey is done. The other half is situating yourself, situating your awareness in the I. That's it. The non-dualists call it the self. A devotee calls it the Isht. A non-dualist practices hard to situate the awareness in the self, but a devotee longs to be in the presence of the Isht. For a devotee, it happens lovingly. It's a discipline for a non-dualist. So, questions? Ud jao, wake up. No questions. Okay. Good job. Everyone's logical mind is at rest. Excellent. So we will meet up next time. All right.